Hello, happy Thursday. What an awesome day it has been. And I am hoping you also had a fantastic Thursday. It is our date night. It is a beautiful opportunity for us to connect and speak to thriving young professionals, entrepreneurs, graduates, young people who want to succeed and do best, right? Become the best versions of themselves. And what an opportunity I have. I always say, I always flex, right? And say that I work with the most intelligent, I think, the most intelligent people because I'm surrounded by chartered accountants, aspiring chartered accountants, people that are making such a difference in my country, a difference in the world. Because, I mean, you always need people that are going to check up on you and make sure that you do things right. But the journey to getting there, wow, that journey is not easy. And any profession, right? We're not just speaking about one profession today. Yes, I'm joined by ladies that can speak to that profession, but we all go through so much. So, ladies and gents, beautiful humans, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I love the fact that you've been sticking around for our dates, and I'm seeing one of my beautiful graduates. They just finished writing their exam, saying, "Listen, I'm in it. I'm in it to win it." So I'm going to close my WhatsApps because then what happens is then you get calls at the most awkward moment during a live session. But thank you for that message, that you are in it and in it to win it with us this evening. So I'm going to take this moment to introduce Nthabiseng, Mabuya, and Snenhlanhla Shabangu. And you know how we roll, right? We always give our guests an opportunity to set the tone, tell us about themselves, because what better way to know someone until they actually tell you, the best way. I don't want to read a bio. I've obviously got some background, but how does a person tell you about them is what needs to stick, what needs to be important. So I'm going to start with Nthabiseng. And Nthabiseng, good evening. Please greet our guests and share a little about who you are.
Good morning, Uyo. Good evening, Ms. Linda. Oh, sorry, I'm still in morning phase. But good evening, everyone. And as Ms. Linda introduced me, I am Nthabiseng Mabuya. And when somebody basically says introduce yourself, I'm always like puzzled, where do I start? But I think my journey always starts at the age of 16, right? I went through so many trials and tribulations with regards to that. And at the age of 16, I was in high school, obviously, I was in grade 10, and I was diagnosed with a condition called focal dystonia. And it's basically a nerve condition that attacks your neurosystem, and unfortunately, it attacked my right hand. And I am right handed. So it basically weakened my ability to write. So if I wrote for long periods of time, my handwriting would not be legible. I would have to like carry my hand. And in the very same year, I was diagnosed with severe chronic asthma. And I was hospitalized simultaneously because of the two conditions. And the asthma got so bad that I went to ICU, and it was just a crazy year for me because I was so young and I was exposed to such illness at such a young age. And as the years progressed, I was absent from school. So basically, I went to a public school, and the kids weren't really that nice because I was known as the disabled child, the special needs child. And they basically suggested I must be homeschooled. I got bullied a lot because of those conditions, because at some point my hand stayed constant in the state. And I had to wear like a wristband and a wrist guard, and it was just a lot. And I remember I told my mom and my dad that, listen, it doesn't matter what I'm going to go through. It doesn't matter what the devil tries to throw at me. I'm going to rise above. And in matric, I told my parents that come hell or high water, I need to be the dark scholar, the top achiever at that school. And by the grace of God, I was granted, the top achiever, and I matriculated with the 7 distinctions that I planned to secure. And moving on to university, I tried to basically bridge the gap between grade 12 as well as varsity. And my love for empowering people started there. I knew the challenges that I faced when I was a student. I knew the challenges that I faced in terms of applying to varsity, getting bursaries and stuff, because that information was not really available. So I told myself, no, man, let me go back to my high school. Let me go to the other high schools and just give the matriculants that motivational talk, study tips on how to secure like good marks, how to get good bursaries, and how to get the funding that you need, because university is so expensive. And that's basically how I started my journey in terms of youth empowerment. And I remember when I was in third year during COVID in 2020, I went through such a rough time because at varsity we were given a choice. It's either you go home and never come back, or you stay at varsity and never see your family again until the lockdown eases up. So I went home, and then as the restrictions were eased, we were called to come back because I was part of the house committee. And when I came back, it was around July, right? So I hadn't seen my parents like in July. And if we were to meet them, they can't come to Res. I must like sneak out, act like I'm going to the shopping center, and then meet them there. Because it was just so much. And I remember the last encounter that I had with my father was on my birthday. And unfortunately, he passed away during that year. So we were celebrating his 50th birthday on the 9th of September, and he passed away 5 days after that. And knowing that I lost my dad at such a young age, I was 21. He's never been to any of my graduations. Everybody in my family has a picture with him on graduation day. I was the only one that was like left out. And I was struggling, with depression because I had just lost my father, and lockdown was not helping. COVID was not helping. And on top of that, I was doing third year. I have to qualify for CTA, and already, I was at UJ, so your marks had to be like at a 55% average. So in that moment, I had to ask myself, am I going to make it, or am I just going to break? And what motivated me was that I knew my dad wanted me to pass. I knew that, I had to do it for my family because I'm a Tutuga alumni, and I knew at that time, if I fail, I lose Tutuga. There's no way out of it. And the only thing that kicked in was like just the adrenaline. And I was like, I have to. I have to pass. I have to make it, and all of that. And that is what drove me to actually pass that year and also continue to my CTA, which I passed. And when I started in corporate world, I realized that, no, man, I feel like I'm not fulfilling my purpose. I don't feel like I'm content. Yes, I passed CTA, but going into corporate world is like, okay, I'm just a trainee, right? And that was never me. I wanted to be something more to the people. And that's when I realized that my calling is, yes, I can achieve these things, but then my purpose is to empower others to also put them in that position, to give them those opportunities that I got, right? And that's why I have that saying of your success can be great, yes, but it's got a greater magnitude when we empower people around us, when we are helping a fellow brother and sister, in our journey. And that's when I decided to be a CTA mentor and an ITC mentor when I eventually passed my board. And my love for just empowering people and mentoring really started growing like a lot. And as a trainee, I think that's what opened me up to, just trying to provide my help, be it academic help, emotional help. At some point, I found myself being a grievance counselor because, I know how it feels like, to lose a parent. And many people reached out during COVID when they were losing, their loved ones. And I remember there's a student that I was mentoring. She lost her best friend a week after my dad passed away. So we would just comfort each other. I know, like, we just saw each other in the entrance and we just hugged each other and we just cried. And sometimes that's something that you need, even if it's just an ear. I'm always willing to just, put myself out there to help the next person. And I think how I got here as a trainee, it's because of resilience and the grace of God, number one. And also because I think being just the trainee, it was never ever just for me. I knew that I had to show the young Black child that, hey, girl, it is possible. It doesn't matter what you go through in life, it doesn't matter what life can throw at you. You should never let your circumstances, become your identity. And the one thing that I loved is that the support that I got from my friends, my community, I built my life on that, because you need people. As much as you think that you can live in isolation, you can never live in isolation. And that's why I wanted to just create that safe platform for people to just come to me and just ask me for advice, be it whether they're doing ITC or APC. Created that platform on YouTube that the viewers can literally tell me what they're going through and what challenges they are facing. Because when I was doing the APC board exam, I was writing, I was failing, I was just I was just going through the most. I was failing the whole year. And I remember I had to tell myself that, girl, you need to have a strategy. And when I was looking through YouTube, the strategy was not there. The templates that I was looking for was not there. And it's just like I was going through the most. And that's why I'm just like, you know what? Here's an opportunity. I need to help the next candidate, with the things that we go through in APC. And that's why, I would make videos on ethics, or just, strategic considerations, because it was not readily available. And I
Yeah.
think that is how I ended up, just being the trainee that I am today. And it's just because someone out there took a chance on me, and that someone is Tutuga. And listen, I think I'll just wrap up for that, like there.
Definitely. Oh my goodness, we're going to hear all about Tutuga and some of the support you received and the advice that you are going to share from just your experience. I'm so impressed at the fact that you were able to just sum up all of that so quickly and introduce the topic as well, because today is special. We are tackling how to thrive during the exam season. So if you didn't catch some of those right now, hi, you must improve your note taking. Hey, my people, the wise, the awesome, the gorgeous, the always willing to step in and share. I just want to quickly allow Snenhlanhla to introduce herself and just touch there and there on the journey before we get into the crux of the conversation. I know we've got a few questions that we have to tackle. We've got tips, we've got strategies that we need to unpack for the young people that are joining. Hey, even us old folks that are okay, I'm not that old, but even us old folks that are going through exam season have a lot to learn. Let's get to hear from Sneh before we go back to Nthabiseng. Snenhlanhla, over to you.
Thank you, Linda. Good evening, everyone. As Linda has briefly introduced me, my name is Snenhlanhla Shabangu. In terms of career, I am a chartered accountant by profession. I did my articles with the AGSA, and then I stayed with the AG, I think, for about 8 years. And then after that, I got an opportunity to join Deloitte. And I think, as part of my intro, there's also something that I want to touch on, to say that, I did my articles with the public sector, and there was this perception that you won't be employable in the private sector. So I think for me, it was not just only important for me, but also for anybody else who is observing and watching. So I then stayed with Deloitte for about 3 years. I qualified as a CA in 2016. So my story is very long, but I'll be focusing on the important parts for the conversation. And then currently I'm with the Public Investment Corporation. So I think as part of my introduction, there are some few pointers I'd like to touch on, and I think some will overlap with Nthabiseng's. So I think in as much as on the outside things look like they were smooth sailing, it was an easy journey. It wasn't. For example, I was at FITS, right? So I went to FITS, and then I did a Bachelor of Accounting Science undergraduate degree. It's supposed to be done in 3 years. I took 5 years. So I think for me, it's important to share this because had that not happened, I think that my life and career would have not panned out the way that it did. Because I remember when I finished my undergraduate degree, before jumping into CTA and the rest of the journey, I had to sit back and reflect and hold myself accountable. I'm big on accountability, and some people close to me like to say that I tend to be hard on myself, but that's just how I'm wired. So I had an honest conversation with myself. And I think what came out of that was the honest fact that I was doing everything other than what I was supposed to be doing at varsity, the partying, the friends, the drinking, the this, the that. But also similar to Nthabiseng, I had a passion for community involvement. I remember there's a time where I volunteered to be a volunteer tutor for high school students. And it was so funny how my accounting students, high school learners, were passing and they were thriving their accounting, and then Fitz was dribbling me. So I think that it's part of life to make mistakes, right? But I think that a critical point is that at the point of a mistake, you have to hold yourself accountable. You have to go back to the drawing board and just see what you did wrong so that you can do right going forward. And another thing that I would like to touch on that I suppose has kept me going over the years. So I think one of them is accountability, as I've mentioned. Then the second one is that I have a daughter. So at the time when I was at varsity, my daughter was in KZN. My mom was assisting in taking care of her. So I think as she was growing up, as I was missing out on the key milestones in her life, a switch just clicked in my head, to say, if you repeat CTA, you're spending one more year away from your daughter. If you fail board exams, you're spending one more year away from your daughter. So I set a timeline to say I'm signing off articles in 2016, in 2015, and I would have done my CTA level one, level two, ITC, APC, APT. I would be done with all of it. And I literally took it as a matter of life and death, because for me, I was like, when I sign off articles, I'm taking my daughter for her to come stay with me. So I think that also was quite a key driver. And I think Linda, I'll pause there and then I'll continue with the journey and the story later on. But I think it was just important for me to highlight the fact that things did not start smoothly. it was rough at the beginning.
I love what you said. It was a matter of life and death. And, realistically speaking, for a lot of us, it is a matter of life and death because that one step forward that you are not making, that critical decision, that lack of sacrifice of the time that you should be sacrificing is costing not only yourself, at times it's costing a generation. And when you think about it like that, it's like, yay, I need to be a breaker of generational curses. Someone I know who is on this date with us tonight says this so proudly to change the mindset of young people, to say, you are here for a greater purpose. You are probably here to make a difference in your family and actually feed more than just your family, the community. By you doing differently, by you taking the step, you are going to make a huge difference. So Nthabiseng, what are the things that you have been plowing to make sure that people around you that need to be getting into the exams can take forward? What is the message that you have been giving out there? I think it's your time now to give us those nuggets that we need to start jotting down. Nami, I am ready.
Definitely. And I'm so glad you introduced my theme, which is generational curse breaking. And every encounter that I have with you, Miss Linda, you know that I always like telling the future leaders of this country, as I like to call them, generational curse breakers, because some of us are going to be the first to graduate in our families, first doctors, first accountants, first lawyers, whatever career path you're pursuing. And the first nugget I'll give you is never ever let your circumstances become your identity, because it doesn't matter what you're going through, it doesn't matter, it has happened. Now we leave it in God's hands, but now you decide your future. And the reason why I'm saying this is because had I listened, to the bullies back then in school, I wouldn't be where I am today. I made sure that I tell myself that the sky is never the limit. You're only going to go as far as you're willing to take yourself. So never ever sell yourself short, because you are capable of big things. And number two is setting boundaries. I think setting boundaries is very important, because sometimes when you are chasing a specific goal, when you have a dream, you need to sacrifice certain things. And one of the things that I sacrificed as a student is a nice time, because obviously I was at res, I was exposed to a lot of things, but then I remembered those things will always be there. But course will always chow if you do not chow back, right? So I made sure that the things that I'm sacrificing is going out with friends, because I knew the main purpose. And one of the things that I kept on telling the varsity students that I'm mentoring is that within these four walls, never forget your purpose in being there. You came there to learn, you came there to get a degree, right? Remember the people that you left back home in the communities. And that's one thing that you need to set, which is boundaries with your friends. But boundaries don't only apply to friends, but also to family, because sometimes you have responsibilities as a child in the household. And one of the things that my parents used to do, I used to tell them, okay, I'm studying, please do not knock on the door, I am fine. If I come out, I'll come out. If I need the bathroom, I need to eat. But if you see the door is closed, let's keep it like that, right? But at the same time, it became toxic because I did not take a break, right? Which brings me to point number three, is always make sure you take a break. And the reason why I say that is because, yes, we can be so fixated on the goal, the end journey, that I need to study, I need to put in the hours, and you neglect your body and you want to sleep 3 hours a day. Let me tell you, in CTA, I thought I can pull an all-nighter. There was one session that was 2.5 hours. I spent 1 hour having a blank page, did not even remember anything besides my name. I wrote my name and I wrote my student number. That's it. I couldn't remember anything, even if it was a capital budget. I didn't even remember that depreciation is not supposed to be included, because that's how much I stressed. And to a point where the invigilator came to me and comforted me and said, "Mtanam, just write whatever you can remember. It's going to be okay." And it was I just started crying. Now the invigilator is taking me out of the exam room and is giving me water, saying, "Just breathe." In that moment, that's when I realized that, my body was crashing and I did not listen to my body. So the third thing is listen to your body and take breaks. It's okay to take a break. So if you're studying and you're not a person who likes to concentrate for long periods of time, every hour, take a 5-minute leg stretch. Go to drink water, or maybe go for a walk, or maybe, talk to someone in the house. But you need to make sure that you're taking those breaks. And the next thing is know when you are productive, right? If you're a night person, make sure that you're capitalizing on the subjects and the modules you are your strongest at in your most productive period. If you're a morning person, I used to be a morning person. So I'd sleep maybe at 8 o'clock, and then I'd wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning, right? So that I know at 2 o'clock I'm most productive. And I'm going to start with the one that was chowing me, which was auditing. I did not understand auditing, but I told myself at 2 o'clock, listen, auditing, I'm going to make it my Bible, because I need to get it right. And that's when I capitalize on that hour. And then towards the end of the day, when I'm feeling fatigued and I'm feeling, a bit, offish, I'll do a module that I'm comfortable with, but I still need to practice. For example, for me, it was finance, because finance, sometimes it is reasonable, it is logical. You just need to know the story behind the numbers, like Saika always says. And the next tip is do not be too hard on yourself. I think Usne covered it where she said that she was too hard on herself. And one of the things we need to do is know that you need to be your biggest cheerleader, because in that moment, it is just you, the paper, and God. No one else can motivate you. Just make sure that you are your biggest motivator. You're speaking life to yourself and you are saying, I'm competent, I'm capable, I am able, I got this, right? I always like saying that, like, taxation doesn't have a mouth, it can't talk back to you. Accounting doesn't have a mouth, it can't talk back to you. So it cannot defeat you. So you need to make sure that you're putting in the work. And then the last thing is, every time you overcome a failure, or you come across a failure rather, never ever be a victim of imposter syndrome. And the reason why I'm saying this is because throughout my APC journey last year, I failed the whole year. And there was an assessment in assessment 3 where I'm the only person in my group who failed that assessment. So imagine, I'm thinking something is wrong with me. I'm not that smart. Maybe Psycha made a mistake when I was writing ITC. I'm really not that smart. I'm not capable, right? Because why is it only just me? And I had that feeling of I'm not good enough. I'm not capable. I'm not able to actually produce the results that Psycha wants. But then I had to pull myself out of that dark place, because I knew that it is time for me to show up for myself. I told myself I need to do this thing once and do it right. And that's when I went to actually look at what is my weakness and what is my strengths. And the last point is basically saying that when you are completing the study schedule and the game plan, I like to call it the game plan, right? When you have your game plan, you need to make sure that you have a list of all your strengths and all your weaknesses. And when you're drafting your game plan, you will start with what you are weak at. Because when you perfect your weaknesses, you will get to your strengths, and that's when you feel confident. Just like how when you're writing an exam, you're going to start with what you're confident in first, so that you can get the momentum going. And then you're going to reach the end of the questions that are just, a bit shady. But you're going to tell yourself that, okay, I've covered 50% of the paper. Now it's game time. I need to put my thinking cap on. Right. And that brings me to my last point. Every single time you are studying, sometimes we do not cover everything. And maybe you might be shocked on the day, when they take out a module, or maybe a topic that you said, it's not going to come out. Then, surprise, surprise, it came out. Right. So how to actually tackle that is actually tell yourself, listen, I know this. So therefore, I need to center myself and ask myself, where do I know this from? Because when you're studying, you always need to ask yourself, why am I studying this thing? If they say depreciation in the capital budget is not included, why is it not included, right? And why is this thing triggered the way it is? Because once you understand the why, you get the basics. So you know that whatever way the lecturer is going to ask the question, you will be able to answer it and apply professional judgment, because you know your facts. So just make sure that you're always asking the why, and never cram. Please, never, ever, ever cram, because you will have to recram the cram that you crammed the previous time. So I think those are my nuggets just for tonight. Miss Linda, over back to you.
What is your game plan? Do you actually have a game plan? And it's so important to have a plan. Your ladies, I just wanted to note, when are we going to motivate? We've got a planned video to share. You must just let me know, when are we going to set up our video to engage with, because I think it also puts aside quite an important message. Snenhlanhla, what are your thoughts on the game plan? Because you've been through the most with your journey. You've tackled quite a bit. I think if we play the video, we'll downplay what you have to share. So I want to
Okay.
suggest that we start with you and then go into our surprise for all those that have joined us. What do you think?
Okay, no, I'm happy with that approach, Linda. So I think that in terms of my nuggets, I won't repeat what I said earlier on about accountability. But for me, accountability has been a theme during my studies. It continues to be a theme even now when I'm working. So whilst I was doing CTA, I think that is where I did my foundation. I always say that I passed my board exams during CTA. So in terms of the accounting standards, accounting was my favorite. And I think accounting was my favorite because for me, it was a case of there's X amount of accounting standards in the exam. If let's say we have 50 accounting standards, they can't come up with a new standard and come test it. And then what I also realized, Linda, in now doing a deeper dive into my studies and not just studying in the surface, is that within the accounting standards, guess what? They had illustrative examples, but you won't see those examples if you haven't gone to. There's something that they have within the standards called basis of conclusion. No one ever looks at that. So because I was doing a deeper dive, I found some of the theory questions in those bases of conclusion. I remember there's an IFRS 10 question that I just flew through. It was literally from the basis of conclusion. So I think what I did differently in being a bit older post varsity was that I wasn't studying to finish. It was not a race. So what I used to do in terms of if I share one of the techniques is that I would take an accounting standard, PPE being my favorite standard at the time. So I would take it, and I love mind maps to say if this PPE is property, what are the different classifications that we have within property, write all of them down, and the different classes then within PPE without, getting too technical. But my mind works in a mind map. And I think it's important for every person to just understand how their mind works. Because then now when I get into an exam and there's a PPE question, and it just happens to be property, my mind is back to my mind map. And then I'm reading the scenario and I'm plugging back to my mind map. And when I'm plugging back to my mind map, I'm now covering everything with regards to PPE, linking back to the question. So I think that I cannot overemphasize the importance of understanding what you are studying. And if, let's say, I make maybe a relatable example, tax. There's individuals tax, there's companies tax, there's a million other taxes. But within individual taxes, there's potentially only 10 things within scope. So you get to the question. If it's an individual's tax question, then you know I'm within this 10. Back to a mind map. Literally, that is how I think, that is how I function. And I think in understanding how I think and function, it really assisted me to thrive. And then I also want to share a brief story to say I got to UNISA after Wits, wrote my first test one, was with the AG. Management accounting, I got a 20%. Accounting, I got 80%. So back to what Nthabiseng was saying, I love accounting, so I was overdoing accounting. So I went back to the drawing board, and it was a matter of you'll finish the year with a distinction for accounting, a fail for MANAC, you are repeating the year. So I did less of accounting and more of MANAC. So I think that as situations change, it's important to readjust your plan, because you can have a plan going in, but if it's not working, you don't wait until it's October, November, or after the results to change your plan. So you need to be very, very agile. So that's what I did. And then another important technique I had when I used to study, it's the old traditional thing of all the questions that you do them under exam condition. So I used to have a clock. I bought it from Clicks. It was like 30 bucks. It would stay there. So I would time myself. But what I did differently when I was marking is that I used different color pens. So green is still my favorite color pen to this day. So everything that I marked green, for me, I had a code called FM. That was a free mark. It doesn't matter the scenario, I am getting that mark. So I would then color code all the subjects. I know the free marks, I know the difficult marks. When I got something wrong, why did I get it wrong? And at the back of the same, in my time, I used a two-choir book. At the back of the two-choir book, it's question one, what were the concepts? And I think you get to a point where it's now repetitive. I mean, you cannot be doing individual text questions, 10 of them. Why? Because if it's in the exam, there'll be one of them. They won't ask you 10 questions and it's individual text. So that's what I did. But I also, in trying to be kind to myself, I also had a rewards system. So my theory back then and philosophy was that on a Friday, I do not touch any books. Back then, I was a trainee. I lived by myself because I had a very funny schedule and I really needed to be alone. I was in a bachelor, no TV, no nothing, just a bed and a fridge. So, same to Nthabiseng, I used to go to bed at 7 p.m. and then 1, 2, somewhere there, wake up, shower, and start studying. So for me, that environment is what was conducive for me at that time. That's what I needed. And back to boundaries, I then made my family and people around me aware to say that if I'm offline or my phone is off during these hours, don't panic. I am alive. I'm just sticking to routine. So that's fine. You stick to routine. I had my rewards system on a Friday night. I would watch series. I love series. So Friday night, I am watching series. I'm eating junk food. I'm not looking at any accounting standard. And then every Saturday, without fail, I would wake up and I would go to the office in Houghton. I lived in the CBD, I would go to the office in Houghton, but I would not just go to the office. I would plan to say, I'm going to the office, this is what I need to cover. So I think in everything that I did, the other very recurrent theme is the planning. You don't just dive in. And I think another last point on planning that I want to touch on is that another approach that I had, which might seem like a time waster, is that when I got into an exam, be it ITC, APT, or APC, when you get the required, I would literally spend a good 10 minutes writing the time allocation. If the exam starts at 8, I'd say 8 until 8:30. This is the one I'm doing. This time until this time. This is the one I'm doing. So, and I had the clock. I'd make sure that I stick to it. And then my last point, as I try wrap up, is that I was one of the unfortunate groups to have written the first APT APC. So it was completely new. And most of my peers, that threw them off. But for me, I think because my mindset has always been to say that you are in the situation that you are in. Me stressing about the fact that I'm the first group to write APC, whether I stress about it or not, it's not going to change. That's what we're writing. So what I then did is that I did thorough research to say, what is Psycha looking for? So one of the things that I think the audience would know is that if you don't attempt a task, it's a fail. So I went in there on there is no task that I will not attempt. And the layout and the whatnot, I think the audience would know these things, so I won't dwell into them. And I think another last story I want to share with APT is that I did the Joburg exam board. It's written at UJ as a service provider. At the time, I lived a bit far. Like everything on the morning of the exam that can go wrong, that morning it went wrong. I arrived at the venue about an hour late. The exam is 8 hours. People don't finish in 8 hours. I think that's an important premise. So I'm arriving late. If you know UJ, you park on one side of the world and you're right on the other side of the world. So I think in my mind, I think one of my strengths is me being able to control my mind in very stressful situations. So I think as I was driving at the time, I was fortunate to have had a car. I was like, you know what, Sneh? If you rush and get into an accident, guess what? You are not writing that exam. You are definitely repeating next year. You extending your plans by a year. So I was like, I will drive. If the robot is red, I am stopping. Got to UJ. I'm very clumsy. I'm like, if you fall, you sprain your ankle, you will not be able to walk and get to the venue. And I'm also a very fussy person. So I'm one of those people in the board exams that pack snacks. I'm like, I want my yogurt, I want my dry fruits. I'm like, I'm taking out my lunch bag. Like, You could swear I had all the time in the world, but I had to make sure that all my standards are in, all my snacks are in, because once I walk across, I can't go back. And I think back to reality, what kept me going at the back of my mind then was that in doing research for APC, it was said that you need 5 hours for the exam, but we give candidates 8 hours for whatever reason. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, I have 7 hours. I stand a good chance. Stand a good chance. So I went in there and I was able to write and pass within the 7 hours, proceeded to APC. I think when APC came, I always say APC was my favorite exam. I think that sometimes we forget to have fun. We so caught up in passing, passing, passing. I enjoyed APC. I think I enjoyed it so much because I used the same set of standards for flagging purposes. So I was like, you know what? It doesn't need as much effort from a technical perspective. I have highlighted and underlined my standards to the T. My mind maps, I was using the same mind maps. Literally, it was a plug and play, but obviously now practicing what the requirements are for APC. And then lastly, one of the strategies that I've carried throughout is language. In accounting, there is a language. So I can understand something, but if I'm not writing it in that language, the marker is not going to give me the marks, even though I know what I meant. Auditing, everyone hates auditing, but don't shoot me. I got to a point where I enjoyed auditing because I studied it from a language perspective, you know, to say they want the verbs, the verbs, sorry. You must observe, you must inspect all the verbs. So I think I studied so much. The CA journey is so long to a point that I got to a point where I'm like, okay, I may as well have fun here. So I think that it's also quite important, Linda, that we also remember to enjoy what we're doing. Yes, it's studying there, you can enjoy it. And I think lastly, rewards are important. After every test, I would either go home, I would have friends over, whatever the case is. So I was still plowing back and pouring back into my family. So I think I will pause here, Linda, and then back to you in terms of what is next.
I love it. Just how you positioned your closing or towards your closing there. The other day I told you earlier I've got a 10-year-old, so it's the first year of getting into the swing of actually doing exams. So they're preparing, and she's like, "Oh, I'm so nervous." I'm like, why? Tell me about it. What's making you nervous? Remember, I have to write all of these things that I know, and then they're gonna sit there and mark it. What if I don't get it right? And the one thing I said to her is just take joy in sharing. Think about it like you telling your teacher a story of everything that you know. You are showcasing to her that, listen, I've been here, I've heard you, I understand this. When she reads it, she must feel like, you know what? Anga knows exactly what she's talking about. It's your opportunity to brag about the knowledge that you have. Like you've got all of this in your head, like someone else must be able to see what you've got in your head. So sometimes when you think about things differently and you position them differently for yourself, well, I was doing it for my daughter, but for yourself as well, have fun with it. Think about how it's going to make you feel at the end when someone else is looking at what you have put down, just from the basis of what you shared, Snenhlanhla. You made me remember that conversation I had. We've got a question, right, about just tackling the the strain of being a student. There is so much that's happening at undergrad level, right? There's problems at home, and I think Nthabiseng covered that quite deeply about just how to manage, right? Life happens around you, it doesn't stop. And then we've moved on now to the journey towards board, right? How hectic that can be. And we've touched a lot on mindset. Ladies, I have a question around the responsibilities now that take place as someone who is employed and has to go through the preparation for examinations and also manage people at the same time who are either also preparing for exams, also going through things, and have a hectic time. Some of the coping mechanisms that one can put in place for self and for those individuals. We all know it's not easy when you have other individuals that report to you because you have to give them a certain level of attention. So you're pouring into them as much as you also need all of this energy, all of this time. You also have to make sacrifices. And unfortunately, we have people that are actually doing undergrad and have to work and manage people. We have people that are doing postgrad that have to do the same and board. So Sneh, this question is directly it was requested directly for you to tackle because you've been through the most in terms of the journey, as a young professional and a leader, and being one who has now experienced both the public sector and private sector environment, and just seeing others progress who have been under you and have been able to thrive.
Okay. Thank you for the question, Linda. I'll be brief, but I'll touch on the key points because I'm just looking at the clock. So I think that the way that I am, I bring that into the workplace. I'm very organized. There must be a schedule. There must be a point where everyone knows what they're doing. So in my third year, I definitely had a lot of responsibility, so much so that in some of the audits I was in, I was reporting directly to the senior manager. So every second day, I would arrange meetings with her. There was no Teams at the time, but I think now that there is Teams, I would thrive even more to say that you just set a recurring update meeting with the SM. And then, depending on the size of the team that you are managing, be it first, second, third, you understand your team, you know how much attention a person needs. You do one on one, you don't micromanage, but you do a one on one. And obviously, you do meetings at the overall team level, and you draw up schedules. You draw up the milestones for the different team members. If someone is doing critical sections that are feeding into your audit report, you need those sections done. You need those paragraphs, they feed into your audit report. So people doing those sections, you work backwards. You know, by this date the audit report is needed. You work backwards, you work backwards. So I think that if you are assistant manager, third year manager, whatever the case is, you in a position where you can direct how the team is going, and definitely use everything at your disposal. Use spreadsheets. Share those spreadsheets every week, every 3 days. You can determine what will work, and also use color coding. We love to see green. I mean, green means things are good. Claw back on positivity as well. Tasks that are complete, mark them green. The ones you're concerned about, amber. The ones that need to get done, red. So I think that the best way to manage your deliverables is to have schedules. That's what I used even till this day. That is what I use, so that at any given point in time, I'm up to date with how far people are with the work, and the senior manager is also up to date with how far the audit is going.
Awesome, awesome. I'm sharing the comment there that says, "Fun in auditing." Hey, Snenhlanhla, don't play with us. You see the comment there saying it will take me years from a man to find it fun. And it's a reality, I think, shame. It's one of those that really, really, really take people time to like it. It's the few, that will safely say it in public like Snake to have fun with it. Um, So I'm seeing another question that's coming up. Nthabiseng, just on goal setting, right? During this period, how did you manage to set the right goals for yourself as a trainee? Um, just some advice to, and I think this one is coming from an undergrad, just setting goals.
Okay, I'll take it from undergrad level first. So, coming into varsity when you got distinctions and then you get to first year and then life just hits you because now it starts to sink in that, listen, things just got real. So the one thing I had to learn is setting realistic goals. I had to ask myself, okay, what am I capable of doing? When I got to first year, okay, the marks were great. I was even asking myself, hey, man, people are failing accounting. Why are they failing, BEC? I don't understand. And then I got to second year. That's when you feel the stress. So in my first year, I said, it's possible to get the distinctions. This is where I am on an academic level. And I set the goal of, getting the distinctions, and I got them. Then when I started seeing in second year that things got tougher, I had to reassess my goals. And now it's like, okay, I can still get maybe 60s, 70s here and there. Even if it's not a distinction, I can push myself. Then when I got to third year, things got real because now you're just doing your major subjects, your taxation, accounting, auditing, as well as finance. You're focusing on the 4 core modules, and you need to pass all of them in 1 year. Now it wasn't about distinctions, it was about just passing. Right. So you need to ask yourself, where are you on the academic scale? What needs to be done for you to get to the next level? I like to always have the next plan, right? Yes, you can achieve what you need now, but you need to achieve it for the next goal that you want. My next goal in third year was CTA, and I had to achieve a specific average to get to CTA. So you need to be able to be at a point where you're realistic with yourself and ask yourself, okay, am I able to meet the minimum requirements for what is required from me? And if I am, you need to ask yourself, am I willing to go the extra mile to be the overachiever? What's going to make me stand out, from the other students, or even maybe in a trainee perspective? And that's when you need to set the realistic goal of, yes, this is the benchmark, but let me just stretch myself. And sometimes it's okay just to be laid back and just only meet the minimum requirement. But if you can stretch yourself, then you can actually achieve the goals that you want. Because now it's about asking yourself, what am I capable of doing? And am I able to meet myself there? Because you're only in competition with yourself, no one else. So those SMART goals, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound, is very important. As much as we learned it in LO in high school, it applies even now, right? So that's where you need to be realistic with yourself and ask yourself, in life, where am I? And also, one thing that you must remember, even if you're going through something, you need to be able to be hungry enough to put, whatever you're going through aside, to say, listen, I know I'm going through this. I'm leaving it in God's hands. Some battles are not ours, they are for God. Leave it in God's hands and say, God, give me strength to push through. Because yes, auditing is difficult, but I'm tougher. I think also giving yourself that motivation is, something that's gonna just help.
And on that note, motivation is important. Yes, sometimes it doesn't hit the spot, but when it comes at the right moment, and it comes in different forms for different people. So I know Nthabiseng, you have something that is worked for you, and you'd like to share with us. It has a lot to do with motivation. Maybe you can share with us how this one peaked for you, and why are we sharing it with everyone today? If you can just add that touch before we share with everyone. Thank you so much.
So when I was feeling low, I was feeling demotivated because I was failing, and I'm just like, yo, God, you need to just dibanisa the marks to make them a 50. I don't know how you're gonna do it, but you need to do it, right? So I needed that motivation, that oomph. I knew that, I had to go to YouTube so that someone can tell me, you can make it. Your success is there. It's yours. Claim it, right? So I found one specific video that just covered everything, and I listened to this video from when I was a first year until my last board exam, the APC exam. And this is something that I want to share with everyone because, listen, it just blew my mind. And I feel like you even want to run the marathon, after watching this video. So, yes, take it away, Miss Linda.
There's no other way around it. If success is the result that you are ultimately seeking, you must be obsessed with the process. You have no time to let fear, doubt, failure, quit, negative thoughts, or give up enter into your mental. See, you have massive potential. So from the moment you open your eyes in the morning, your mindset has to be win. Meaning winning that particular morning and carrying that winner's mentality with you as you enter your classroom. So what the person to the left of you is pessimistic. So what the person to the right of you is zoned out. You, yes you, can only be concerned with staying locked in because you refuse to let the aura of your classmates or classroom enter into your mental space. See, this race is won by the one that can distance him or herself from the rest of the pack. And those are facts. So I need you to realize that there will be bad days. There will be times that you feel like you have no earthly idea what your teacher or professor is talking about. But what you will never ever do is throw a pity party. What you will never ever do is tap out. What you will never ever do is concede and throw in the towel. However, what you will do is knock on his or her door and say, listen, I only have one option, and that is success in your class. But right now, I'm confused about the lesson you taught today, and I need clarity, and I need it now. I guarantee, if you are passionate about wanting to achieve success in that class, he or she will bend over backwards to help you. But if you settle for mediocrity and never say anything, you are setting yourself up to fail, and failure, my friend, is not in your DNA.
And failure is not in our DNA, right? That's why we are sitting here together, because we want to spread to everyone else that failure cannot be in your DNA. And motivation comes in different forms, like I said earlier. Some people get motivated by gifts. You promise yourself, you're going to buy yourself that's something that's great, and you've been looking forward to it, that's expensive. You're like, you know what, if I pass this, I'm going to get this for myself. Some of us are instilling that bad behavior with our kids right now, and I'm like, you know what, if you read a book and you can do a summary for me, I'll give you $50. And now she's been doing that now, reading, and then like, there's your 3-page summary, is it enough, can I have my $50 now? So you instill certain things in yourself that give you that push. Some people, they go for other suffering. They're like, oh, if I reach this goal, then I'm gonna run like 10 kilometers, and it contributes to their health as well. Whatever your drug is, use it, take it forward. There's only one way to go, and that's to conquering our goals. Ladies, I'm looking at the time. I know there's no problem with us going over, but knowing the three of us, we are sticklers for time and order, and we said we're gonna do this time, and but I'm going to just hand over to Nthabiseng, just your parting shots to the beautiful people that have joined us. Something maybe that there's just sparked that you wanna share, something that's deep in your spirit that you feel you wanna close with.
So, in my closing statement, right, if you have upcoming exams coming up and you are writing maybe a supplementary or anything, you just need to make sure that you forget about the past, you forget about the year mark that you have, and you focus on the exam. Because the saying says it's not over until the fat lady sings. I say it's not over until you say it's over, because only you know how far you can go, and never ever let anybody in your life tell you how far you're willing to go. Thank you, Miss Linda.
Nizwile, never ever. Did you hear that? Never ever ever. Snenhlanhla, please take it
My
away for us.
my last parting shot is the gospel that I preach at any given point in time. Regardless of what you're studying, pass rates are looking bad. There are people who will fail. There are people who will pass. I like to say they will not fail all of us. Make sure that June Saika had a 14% pass rate. I had a friend writing and he passed. I used to tell him that even if the pass rate is bad, make sure you are in the 14%. So he was definitely in the 14%. They cannot fail all of us. Make sure you pass. That's my parting shot, Linda.
Uh, you're reminding me of someone that posted that it's a Friday, close those laptops, let's go home. They can't fire all of us. Oh, ladies, it's been such an incredible time spent with you. I hope everyone gathered those nuggets. I think one as a parting shot for me that you both somehow shared is setting an environment for you to succeed. You know, where do you go? What's around you? And using that space, right? Maximizing it wherever it is, you know, closing the door and zooming into self. Oh, another one that is stuck from Snenhlanhla, what you shared, just you breaking down all of that, said to me, one of the key things, and I do it when I speak about personal branding as well, you need to know yourself. Like, take the time to get to know yourself. Because if you don't know yourself, you're going to get confused. Like, even with the session that we've just had now, if you are going to apply everything because you don't know yourself, you're not going to take time to then say, oh, I'm a person like this. So, from what Sneh said, this is actually going to work for me. I'm this type, this is going to work. You can't take everything. But if you don't know yourself and you don't take the time to know yourself, it then becomes even more difficult to put the right things in place. So for me, I'm grateful, Sneh, that you also touched so deeply into how you know yourself, and that has contributed to you succeeding and actually thriving, if I may say so myself. We are bowing out. Thank you so much. Know thyself, study. They won't fail all of us. Do the right thing. Bye, everyone. Thank you, Mandisa. Thank you, Meli Pepelo. Thank you, Tabo. There's someone who shared that the shame their brain is fried. PGDA. Masabata just wrote, man, we love you. I hope you're going to give yourself a reward for the brain being fried, because it's going to be worth it. Let's wait for the results. But also, even if the results haven't come in, whatever they come as passed, failed, ready to supplement, whatever the case, just celebrate the fact that you have come so far. Bye, everyone. We can say bye, ladies.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.